In this video, we'd like to talk to you about different types of corals, in specific, true corals. So true corals exist in the kingdom Animalia, the phylum Cnidaria, and are the class Anthozoa, also referred to as true corals. True corals are mostly found in the polyp form, which means that they're sessile. Their mouths lead to the pharynx, and true corals also have an incomplete gut. This means that the same hole that they eat in is the same one that they excrete fecal matter. True corals have gastrovascular cavities, which are further divided into sections called mesenteries. Corals can form a mutualistic relationship with photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellae, which provide the corals with oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon compounds. In return for this service, the corals provide zooxanthellae with ammonia waste to turn into nitrogenous compounds. So the true corals combine to form three subclasses, which are Hexacoralia, Octocoralia, and Ceriantharia. Today we're going to mainly focus on Hexacoralia and Octocoralia. So soft corals exist in the subclass Octocoralia and are the order Alcyanocea. Soft corals do not produce calcium carbonate skeletons as do their counterparts hard corals. Instead, they contain small spiny skeletal elements called sclerites. These sclerites provide support to the coral and give them spiky texture that deters predators. Soft corals have a genus called Saccharophyton. These are known as toadstool corals, and they're named this because of the toadstool-like structure. Toadstool corals reproduce by releasing pieces of their capitilium, which can grow into new colonies. For scientists, corals in this order, which is Alcyonia, can only be identified at the genus level. This is because identification requires the collection of the tiny sclerites from the specimen to be examined at a microscopic level. Scientists can examine these sclerites under a microscope. They can also take the sclerites and get information from their gene sequencing, as well as gaining information from NMR spectroscopy and IR spectroscopy. So here we have a video of a soft coral, and in this video you can see these small little structures right here. The green structures are their polyps. Now these polyps are farther distended than their counterparts of hard corals.
Now some talk about hard corals, which are subclass Hexacoralia and order Scleractinia. Hard corals mostly form colonies and exist in polyform. Hard corals are monophyletic. They are referred to as hard corals because they secrete shells made from calcium carbonate. The calcium carbonate shells are called corallites. They're predominantly hermaphroditic. Most are able to reproduce asexually through budding, and most hard corals rely on zooxanthellae for food and nutrients. Hard corals are responsible for a large portion of the formation of coral reefs, which occurs due to asexual reproduction in them. Hard corals also reside in temperate water below the aphodic zone. Now we will focus on a more specific genus called Montipora. These corals form calyces which are separated by their coenostomes. They contain polyps which, in response to a threat, can retreat into the coral. These corals are resistant to coral bleaching. Now in this video, you can see a hard coral, and you can notice these shiny spots. They're the polyps on the hard corals, and they're responsible for nutrient absorption from the flowing water. It's extremely important to understand why corals are important and why they're under threat. Corals are extremely important because they contain huge biodiversity inside them, and the biggest source of biodiversity in the oceans. They are under threat because of industrial pollutants released into the ocean completely untreated. These pollutants can contain mercury, lead, sulfates, nitrogenous compounds, which can eliminate biodiversity through eliminating species and animals. They are also threatened by bioerosion, which is the erosion of the calcium carbonate shell on top of the hard corals due to biological events, and sedimentation, which is the deposit of sediment on top of the corals brought to the ocean by water and land sources. And the last but not least is coral bleaching, which is the removal of algae, the zooxanthellae, from the corals, which pretty much destroys the corals because now corals have no way to absorb nutrients after the algae is dead.
And that is our video on corals. We hope you guys enjoyed. And I'd just like to give a special shout out to my roommate Mike Fowler, who allowed us to use his corals in his fish tank and to video them. Thank you.